So Castells Cardoza, their work on society, identified this idea that we need to train a self-programmable worker, someone who is flexible, persistent, and guide their own learning. And in many ways, they argue that we need to rethink education. There is where we bring in Henry Jenkins and his colleagues who looked at participatory learning. They identified a set of skills and competencies that are really required if we want to have our students blossom into fully active, engaged, connected learners who work and learn in participatory settings. The first element is play. Play is at the root of all learning. Watch babies or animals, and they problem solve as they play. And this is where we have to really think about play as a source of learning problem solving, especially when we think about video games or Legos or Maker Ed in general. Kids transfer their problem solving from play to learning all the time. Yet when we do all these laboratory studies on learning, we can never get that kind of transfer. So play needs to be a central skill in participatory learning. We also have to think about how we try different identity works, and that's where performance comes in. And this is that ability to basically look at other identities and improvise and discover ourselves and how we work within different nodes within a network, and trying on different identity work. And this is really popular among adolescents online, where they're really kind of not only building and testing new identities, but they might trade identities in different social spaces. Next is simulation. James G. always talks about how learning isn't really a file cabinet. We don't have a set of schema where things are in alphabetical order in the right file folder. In other words, we run simulations in our mind based on the affordances of our environment, which can shape our memories. But we have to be able to formulate these simulations in our minds. In fact, this is kind of a key difference in human intelligence from all other primate intelligence. This is to simulate outcomes and understand the impacts of our decisions on the future and on the past. So the ability to interpret and construct models of real processes is key to participatory learning. We talked often about remix culture, this idea that we need to appropriate meaningful bits, elements, and be able to construct something new. And I've talked often how reading and writing is simply another form of remixing. If you have to summarize an article, you're just remixing. So can you design and redesign your knowledge that already exists? Multitasking is also the ability to, and it is required in participatory learning. However, we are seeing some pushback on the research in multitasking, showing that it does hurt learning gains. So I think part of the skills of multitasking is knowing how to be present versus always working on your presence. The multitasking occurs, and sometimes the most serendipitous learning can occur when you're fully off task. So this ability to scan the environment and shift between salient details, that's critical. It's not so with all this much information coming at you, it's not how much you read, but knowing what not to read. Then comes in this ability to use all these tools. And Jenkins and his crew call this distributed cognition. And can you expand your mental capacities using these tools? In other words, do you have a great system to access an external storage device, which gives you keys, affordances to interact and create those simulations that we talked about? So distributed cognition is central to participatory learning. Because with that distributed cognition gives you access to collective intelligence. And we can pool our knowledge and work towards a common goal. That is, at essence, online collaborative inquiry. Can you find a solution to some of the most complex problems in the world by working with people you've never met? And judgments and trust are critical to participatory learning. Now, looking at the relevancy and credibility, the truthfulness and usefulness of your online sources or movies or media or Google, all of that really gets down to the importance of judgment in participatory learning. Before, we were told what was true. There was a hierarchy. A publisher pre-vetted all the books that we read. A teacher selected those books. Those books were then given to us. Now, with the filters open, you have to be your own critic. Another key skill in participatory learning is transmedia navigation. This is the idea that you can follow stories across different modalities. Now, this isn't the same thing as having, a book that turns into a movie, that turns into a video game, per se, because we need to see the same story unfold across different modalities, not seeing the same story retold across different modalities. The next skill is networking. And this is your ability. Can you search, synthesize, and disseminate information across all these nodes? There's so much information coming at you. And if you're willing to connect, if you're willing to find communities who share the values that you share, you can engage in ways that have never been possible in human history. And it is through this negotiation that you can diverse different communities, and you need to understand multiple perspectives. You can't just be locked down in what you believe. You have to be willing to adapt and try on different multiple perspectives.